And then do the migration time. We really talked about this already. We talked about the go, and in fact, we talked about all these slides. We talked about why migrate. We talked about how to migrate. We talked about the go, no go, and testing criteria. We talked about doing all the hard thinking work ahead of time. Man, I really anticipated my own slide. We talked about watching for bad connections, and I talked about not celebrating. So this slide is really a pointless slide now. The point is you're not done until you've been successfully moved over for a bit. So David, you have a post kind of talking about the migration process from the junior DBA perspective. And you've done some migrations recently, and you've been around to support them. To talk about kind of the post-migration aftercare that is necessary, if you want.
Absolutely. So you've sort of touched on it already, but immediately after the migration, after we move the database, it's just usually 10 minutes from start to finish, including getting logged in and getting the scripts ready. So once the database on our side has been moved, it's usually up to the client to point their application to the new location, find out all those little rabbit holes that application lives in, and then we watch things like the logs on the original server to see what's trying to log in. What errors are we seeing? It failed to open specifically a defined database because it's offline. On the old server, on the new server, failed logins because the logins weren't moved at an appropriate time or something like that. And then after that, it's just watching. Maybe it's some sort of configuration that was missed on the new server, which if we were involved probably shouldn't have happened, but maybe memory wasn't set appropriately. So just watching the server as we do most, for all of our clients, we watch the alerts that come in via email and daily reports, watching what's coming in and responding accordingly.
Absolutely. All important things. And then celebrate, after 2 weeks, celebrate and enjoy the hard work you did. And, just like the elections here in the United States, start planning your next one at this point, because there's going to be a new version of SQL Server right around the corner. So maybe don't start planning right away, but at least start thinking about it and prepare it. Actually, I kind of joke, but it would be great to be on some sort of a life cycle where you sort of know when you should be looking to get dev upgraded and QA upgraded, and patching has to happen afterwards. Microsoft is now in a CU model. We won't talk about patching too much, but we prefer to be not on the latest CU. We want to be on the one before the latest, or a few months ago if it's been a while between CUs, because I don't need to show you all the problems that Microsoft's had with some CUs over the past handful of years. There's misses sometimes. And as we use SQL Server in myriad ways, the tests, I can't imagine the testing team on the SQL Server team, all the scenarios you have to test. And you probably have an environment that's not quite like their test harnesses. So there will be bugs that get discovered. So we like to wait a little bit. Let's let somebody else find those bugs. So speaking of not being bleeding edge, let's talk about being bleeding edge. I was gonna ask my team to talk about the favorite features of the latest edition, which is SQL Server 2022. But let's be honest. I bet there are people who are here now who will watch this video who are running SQL Server 2008. I'm sorry, but you are, some of you. Definitely some 2012s and 2014s, maybe some 2016s. So round robin, anybody wants to, Tara, if you want to come off mute, talk about some of the features that you think people should be upgrading for, whoever wants to. If I see you come off mute, I'll pick on you.
I have two that I'm excited for. And being new to this, somebody said in our team, I'm reading this book, and it said that they were going to include contained availability groups, which a part of having an AG is making sure the jobs, the logins, and things like that are all the same. Supposedly that was supposed to come out in 2019 as well, but if it comes out in 2022, I think that'll make a lot of AG headaches go away. And the second thing I was really excited for is being able to fail over to 2022 can fail over to the cloud now, have a distributed AG in Azure for disaster recovery purposes and patching purposes, whatever you need.
Yeah, the big thing there is up to managed instance, which is kind of the change. So you could theoretically fill over to a VM in the cloud, but now you can actually add a managed instance to your AG. So you have like an HA on-prem and then a DR managed instance up in Azure, which is pretty cool. So that's actually 2022 features. So you're just going new school. You're not even going 2016 or 2017 features, which is fine. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
I have one that I kind of noted that was really, I didn't see it mentioned very much at the big reveal or whatever at Past Summit a few weeks ago. And that is, in 2019, they improved a lot of the TempDB performance by putting some certain system tables in memory or giving you the option to do that. In 2022, apparently they've, allegedly, they're saying have reduced all latch concurrency issues. So what that means is if you're creating a lot of objects, right? TempDB is a place where you create a lot of temp tables and use your table variables to go in TempDB. They get created to get destroyed, created, destroyed, created, destroyed, right? And by having all these objects, well, they've got to be, there's metadata associated with all of them. And if you're waiting on that metadata, then everything else that you're doing is waiting to create those objects and to get access to those objects.
Sure.
So supposedly they've, again, I've just seen it on some blog posts. I had some conversations, but I haven't seen any major announcement. They're saying that they've really improved the performance of TempDB to the point that there's almost zero concurrency issues with it.
It's beautiful. You could tear my eye. What else? Anybody else have any others they want to talk about? And I'll talk about Query Store. So if you're not on SQL Server, see, the problem is that the older I get and the more versions of SQL Server I know about, the more I have to pause and think. Pretty sure Query Store came out in SQL Server 2016. Now, I'm not wrong. It wasn't 2017. Yep. Okay. So if you're not in 2016 yet, the Query Store is available to you. And why don't you have that? It's a really cool tool. I love the monitoring tools we use, and they're important, but I love Query Store. It makes parameter sifting troubleshooting easier, and most of the time, and it's just better. Jack, what up? What's for you? I made you put your phone back down. Sorry.
I was just confirming that yes, Query Store was added in 2016 initially, but I mean every version since has had upgrades and improvements to Query Store. They added query weight stats that you can report on and look at. They added the automatic tuning recommendations. I don't turn on automatic tuning, but having the recommendations there, that's Enterprise Edition, but is really a great tool to have as well. And then for 2022, now being able to use Query Store on readable secondaries is a great reason to go to 2022 as well if you're offloading reads.
Absolutely.
Because right now you can't do anything on the 2020, on Query Store on readable secondaries. So that's a big one.
Nice. And that automatic tuning, by the way, Tara actually has a pretty cool blog post that was on our blog, I think last month, talking about an approach she built that we use with clients, which we don't like the automatic tuning feature because sometimes it can be a little bit aggressive and it tries to help. Sometimes kind of like a mother-in-law tries to help and they don't really need the help, but you appreciate the thought. But 2022, the metadata for that, not 2022, sorry, Query Store, the metadata that's tracked for that is still there. So we can see a plan regression and we sort of fail a SQL Server agent job and get notifications when that happens. So we know if somebody is experiencing what appears to probably be parameter sniffing problems. And then we can have a human say, yep, this is a problem. Let's pin a good plan or force a good plan. Anybody else have any cool features they want to talk about?
Yeah, I like the intelligent query platform. I've had a few user groups where people have talked about it, and I'm going to add the link to the chat. Just in the Microsoft Learn article about the different changes. Query Store was a part of the intelligent query platform in 2016, and 2019 and 2022 are going to, 2019 did grow on that, and 2022 is going to as well.
Sure.
And a lot of it's a little bit too mathematical for me, but hearing people talk about it, who know what's going on, is exciting because there's lots of things that SQL it's good and bad. Some of the things SQL Server does isn't the best, but a lot of the small things can go away. A lot of the small performance issues could go away through these things, which is exciting.
Nice. And I noticed Matthew has a question. Hey, Matthew, good seeing your name. So it's an old name to see. Any figures worth mentioning from 2016 and 2019 standard? I think some of the big ones, a lot of 2016 SP1 gave us a lot of the programmatic features like compression and partitioning and in memory. And I think Query Store was unlocked in 2016 SP1. Go ahead, Tara.
You get Query Store in 2016 standard.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't mean, I don't know. I said Query Store. I meant to say Column Store. That's my bad. But yeah, I think Column Store came to standard in 2016 SP1 too. But 2019 standard sort of added to that. Always encrypted and TDE. TDE is a big one because a lot of people needed enterprise because some auditor someplace says you must have transparent database encryption. So they went to enterprise just for that feature. Well, you don't have to be enterprise anymore. So that alone is a reason to go from 2016 to 2019, especially for our standard edition. Am I missing any other?
Not that we recommend it too much, but table partitioning you get.
Yep.
The standard.
Yeah, that came out in 2016 for sure. That's a big one.
Yeah,
what about you, Tara?
I think you mentioned it, but index compression as well.
Yeah, compression's
just
huge.
A big one that you got with 2016 SP1 or SP2 in standard edition.
And if you think about compression, compression actually saves you memory too, right? So you're limited to 128 gigs of memory. Well, you have less data in memory now. So that's good.
Yeah, and Query Store is available on all editions. You just don't necessarily get the automatic tuning with standard edition. But then you can do a lot of the stuff the automatic tuning does. You just have to do a little bit more work to get to that information.
Absolutely.
If anyone's watching this later, that they could probably determine that we're begging people, please at least get up to SQL Server 2016, regardless of which version you're on or edition you're on.
There's no reason not to. And if you're going to 2016, you might as well go up a little bit higher. That's all. Because database compatibility mode supports backwards compatibility. So from your application perspective, 99% of the time, there should be no difference on your vendors and your code supporting 2019 or 2016 or 2022 or 2016, because Microsoft wants you to buy licenses and they want you to upgrade. So they want to make your applications not break terribly bad when you upgrade. And if you do proper planning, you should see those features. But go ahead, Jack. You were going to say something too.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that, I can't remember what I was going to say, but that's okay. I was going to say there's just a lot of features that, at 2016 just added that there's really no reason not to upgrade, even if your vendor says they don't support it, like you were saying. I mean, that there's now, they've added so many things that are now database scoped configurations. So you can say this database don't use the legacy cardinality estimator. This database don't. This database use maxstop at this database use maxstop for. Sure. So they've I remember when I first started working with SQL, one of the big selling points was you don't have to change as many things as you do with other database RDMSs, right? Well, as SQL Server has matured, there's been more knobs added that you need to know about in order to tune, in order to make sure that, your old app still works well on this version. But, it used to be a lot of the stuff was a trace flag that you had to set that affected everything, or it was a server level configuration. But, in the 2016 timeframe and later, they keep adding more things at the database level. Absolutely. Which is good. And another feature I would like to talk about that is not, I can't remember what version it was added in, obviously, unfortunately, it might have been 2014, but is backup to URL.
Yes.
So, you can back up, through 2019, you could back up directly to Azure Blob Storage. There's some time and some cost, and, there's some things you need to know to make that work well. But especially if you're in Azure, backing up to URL is a great feature. And with 2022, backup to URL will now support backup to S3 directly. Nice. So, there's, to me, that's just a great feature. There's definitely some things, I love the fact that they added S3. And I'm going to have to check 2022. I haven't tried this yet. but I've hoped they've changed backup to URL, the API they're using for backing up to Azure to blob storage so that it supports larger file sizes than it currently
Yes.
supports.
Yeah.
But-
so back at the big databases.
But yeah, so without having to have 42 backup files.
Yeah, that's right. As we've done for somebody.
Yes. So, but I mean, with all of the issues with ransomware and malware attacks, having your backups offsite is huge. And being able to do it directly makes that so much simpler.
Yeah. In fact, that's a good segue to the homework slide, but it's not actually on the homework slide. But Jack's right. So I think upgrading your SQL Server is really dramatically important. But I think even more dramatically important is backing up your SQL Server databases, and not just backing them up. You're hopefully all doing that, although we do a lot of health checks for clients and you'd be surprised. But you need to be backing up your SQL Server database someplace other than your network. You need to have it offsite, remote to the cloud, someplace that's not accessible, like Jack just said, with no access to the outside world, can't be deleted, something that's journaled, because ransomware is real. And we have seen clients call us up in really bad situations. And sometimes we can help them. Sometimes, unfortunately, we say, hey, I don't feel good taking money from you because it's too late. There's nothing we can do for you because of where your situation is. So backing up your databases and making run books and having your environment documented. So that homework 0 for your developers out there is forget about everything we just said. Make sure your backups are going offline. If they are, do a health check. We can do a health check only, just so you guys know. I'm not trying to sell our services. And by the way, I don't care who you use. If you do one upgrade every 5 to 10 years, you should really call a SQL Server consultant and say, yeah, we're biased. We're SQL Server consultants. There are many, many firms out there that are just like ours that I would say, go work with them. And I don't care who you use, as long as I've done these before. We do a lot of migrations and upgrades. And that just means we have enough scar tissue that we know what we can sort of instinctively do things differently. If you do it once every 5, 10 years, who knows what you're potentially missing? So find somebody to at least advise you and give you some teaching help, and they can walk you through it. So there's the sales pitch. And I don't care if it's us or somebody else, but I consider getting help for them. But do a health check. Again, that's going to be important. Again, we can sell you a health check, but you can also start your own. When we send the recap slide, I'll send you some of the links we share about how to do your own health check. There's a lot of links on it. We have a video on it too, I'm pretty sure. But do your own health check and see what's good, what's bad, and understand your environment. Then research your version and why you should upgrade. And then, don't let the vendor scare you. That's one thing we do with clients sometimes is we talk to the vendor and say, listen, what you're saying is not true. And by the way, if you're a vendor that's in Microsoft, like you're a Microsoft certified partner, and you don't support the latest version, you actually are in violation of your partnership agreement. Just so you know, if you're a vendor, we can be really nice with your vendors, and we can ratchet up the pressure as needed to gain compliance from your vendors. And we've done that before. We've had some interesting chats. Every morning for the next N months until you do your migration, please, before you brush your teeth, look in the mirror and just say in-place upgrades are bad 20 times. That's just the mantra you need to do. Plan your upgrade, test it, upgrade, enjoy, but we're going to wait 2 weeks before we enjoy it. So that is your homework. Our next office hours, next after this, we'll have, we're over time, but we'll still start recording and do office hours for those who have questions, if there are any. And we will do better with time management next time. Obviously, we had a lot of good content, a lot of people involved, so I'm not apologizing for giving content, but we can save more time for questions better next time. So we're going to turn the recording off in a minute. Next month, we're talking about high availability and disaster recovery. That's actually the latest blog post on our blog right now. There's a registration link for that webinar. If you have any questions, email me them. Just mention this in the subject line you were part of the webinar. I'm not going to send you a bill to answer a question. And if you send me 20 questions in one day, I might get suspicious and send you a bill. And I will check IPs if you change your email address. But thank you so much for coming. I'm going to stop recording.